The morning sun cast long shadows across the cobblestones of Westminster, as London awakened to what would become one of the most memorable royal appearances of the year. Inside Kensington Palace, the Wales family was already deep into their mourning. Preparations, though the usual chaos of getting 3 children ready, had been replaced by an almost military precision that comes with years of royal protocol training. Prince William stood before his bedroom mirror, adjusting his ceremonial uniform. With practiced ease, the weight of the medals and decorations felt familiar now. Yet each time he wore them, he was reminded of the gravity of his position and the history they represented. His mind wandered briefly to his father, King Charles, and how proud he would be to see the family representing the monarchy at today's historic service. Down the hall, Princess Kate was having her own moment of preparation, though hers involved significantly more complexity. Her lady-in-waiting had arrived early to help with the intricate process of ensuring every detail was perfect. The dress had been selected weeks ago, a stunning piece that balanced elegance with appropriate solemnity for the occasion. Kate had learned over the years that every choice she made would be scrutinized, from the color of her outfit to the style of her hair, and she had grown to appreciate the artistry involved in royal dressing. The children's rooms were a flurry of activity as nannies and staff worked to transform Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis from sleepy children into picture-perfect young royals. George, now old enough to understand the importance of such occasions, stood patiently as his formal attire was adjusted. He had grown considerably over the past year, and there was something distinctly mature about the way he carried himself, as if he was beginning to understand his future role. Charlotte was proving to be more spirited this morning, her natural confidence shining through as she examined herself in the mirror. She had developed strong opinions about her appearance and wasn't shy about expressing them. The staff had learned to work with her particular preferences, understanding that a happy Charlotte would make for much better photographs than a reluctant one. Little Louis, still young enough to find the whole process somewhat bewildering, was being gently coaxed into his outfit by patient hands. His natural charm and mischievous smile had already made him a favorite with the public, though his unpredictable nature at formal events had provided some memorable moments for the royal family. As the family gathered in the main drawing room for a final inspection, there was a palpable sense of anticipation. William surveyed his family with obvious pride, though there was also the familiar flutter of nerves that came with major public appearances. Kate moved gracefully around the room, making final adjustments to the children's outfits and offering quiet words of encouragement. The palace staff worked with clockwork efficiency, ensuring that every detail was perfect before the family's departure. Security protocols had been finalized, the route had been cleared, and Westminster Abbey had been transformed into a venue fit for this historic occasion. The significance of the day wasn't lost on anyone present, from the highest-ranking officials to the newest members of the household staff. Outside, the streets of London were already filling with people hoping to catch a glimpse of the royal family. Barriers had been erected along the route, and police officers were taking their positions at strategic points. The media had been setting up since dawn, their cameras and equipment creating a technological maze around the Abbey's ancient stones. The atmosphere in the palace shifted as departure time approached. Final security checks were conducted, and the children were given last-minute reminders about protocol and behavior. William and Kate exchanged a look that spoke of years of experience managing these high-profile events together. A silent communication that had developed through countless similar occasions. The royal convoy was assembled and waiting, each vehicle polished to perfection and staffed with trained personnel. The planning that had gone into this single journey was extraordinary, with multiple contingency plans and alternative routes prepared for any eventuality. Nothing was left to chance when it came to the safety and dignity of the royal family. As they prepared to leave the familiar surroundings of their home, there was a moment of quiet reflection. These public appearances, while routine for the adults, represented significant milestones for the children. Each event was another step in their gradual introduction to royal life and the responsibilities that would one day be theirs to carry. The final moments before departure were marked by a sense of collective purpose. The family that had been laughing and chatting informally just minutes before had transformed into the public faces of the British monarchy, ready to represent centuries of tradition and continuity in a rapidly changing world. The moment the palace doors opened, the transformation was complete. The private family became public figures, their every movement now part of a carefully choreographed performance that had been rehearsed countless times. William stepped out, first his bearing confident and assured, followed by Kate, who moved with the grace that had made her one of the most photographed women in the world. The children followed, each displaying their own unique personality, despite the formal setting. George walked with developing confidence, clearly aware of the cameras but managing to maintain his composure. Charlotte practically glided beside her mother, her natural poise evident even at her young age. Louis, bringing up the rear, seemed delighted by all the attention, his infectious smile already charming the waiting photographers. The journey through London streets was like a moving celebration. Despite the early hour, crowds had gathered at every corner, waving flags and cheering as the royal convoy passed. The family could be seen through the car windows, acknowledging the well-wishers with practiced waves and genuine smiles. Kate pointed out interesting sights to the children, helping them understand the historic significance of the route they were traveling. Inside the lead vehicle, the conversation was a mixture of final preparations and gentle reminders. William quietly reviewed the order of service with George, while Kate helped Charlotte adjust her small handbag and reminded Louis about the importance of staying close to his siblings. The children had all attended rehearsals, but the reality of the event was always different from practice sessions. As they approached Westminster Abbey, the scale of the occasion became truly apparent. The ancient building, which had witnessed 1,000 years of British history, was surrounded by a carefully controlled sea of people, media, and security personnel. Every window in the surrounding building seemed to contain spectators, and the sound of the gathering crowd created a distant but audible buzz of excitement. The Abbey itself had been prepared with meticulous attention to detail. Flowers adorned the interior, their colors carefully chosen to complement the historic stone and stained glass. The lighting had been adjusted to ensure that every moment would be captured perfectly by the photographers and television cameras positioned at strategic locations throughout the building. Other distinguished guests were already arriving, creating a steady stream of notable figures making their way into the Abbey. Diplomats, religious leaders, and representatives from various organizations had all come together for this special occasion. The children watched with fascination as they recognized some faces from previous events, while others were entirely new to them. The final approach to Westminster Abbey was conducted at a measured pace, allowing the crowds to fully appreciate the family's arrival. Kate had taught the children to wave in a way that appeared natural while still being visible to as many people as possible. Their genuine enjoyment of the public's enthusiasm made their responses seem effortless and authentic. Security personnel had created a clear pathway from the vehicles to the Abbey entrance, but the family took time to acknowledge the crowds and exchange brief words with officials. William's military training was evident in his precise movements and awareness of his surroundings, while Kate's experience in public relations helped her manage the children's energy and attention. The moment before entering the Abbey was always significant. This was where the private preparation met public expectation, where months of planning would either succeed or require quick adaptation. The family paused briefly at the entrance, not for photographs, but for a moment of quiet reflection before stepping into the historic interior. The ancient stones of Westminster Abbey seemed to absorb and reflect the weight of the occasion. Every royal wedding, coronation, and state funeral in recent memory had taken place within these walls, and the children were old enough to understand that they were part of continuing that tradition. The Abbey's acoustics meant that even whispered conversations carried a certain gravity. Inside, the atmosphere was both reverent and electric with anticipation. The assembled guests represented a cross-section of British society and international dignitaries, all united in their respect for the institution of monarchy and the specific occasion that had brought them together. The sound of their conversations created a gentle murmur that seemed to enhance rather than disturb the sacred atmosphere. The family's entrance into the main body of the Abbey would mark the true beginning of the ceremony. Everything up to this point had been preparation, but now they would take their places in the historic setting and become part of an event that would be remembered and discussed for years to come. The children understood that their behavior from this moment forward would be observed and analyzed, but they had been well prepared for this responsibility. The great doors of Westminster Abbey opened before them, revealing the magnificent interior that had been transformed for this historic occasion. The family stepped across the threshold together, their footsteps echoing softly against the ancient stones that had witnessed centuries of British history. The Abbey's soaring arches and intricate stonework created a backdrop of breathtaking beauty, while the carefully arranged lighting cast everything in a warm, reverent glow. As they processed down the aisle, the assembled congregation rose in unison, creating a rustling sound that seemed to fill every corner of the vast space. George walked beside his father, his young face serious but alert, clearly absorbing every detail of the moment. He had been coached on the importance of maintaining proper posture and keeping his eyes forward, advice he was following with impressive maturity for someone his age. Charlotte moved with remarkable composure beside her mother, her small hand occasionally reaching out to smooth her dress with unconscious elegance. She had always possessed a natural sense of occasion, and today was no exception. Her bright eyes took in the grandeur surrounding them, but she remained focused on her role in the proceedings. The weeks of preparation were evident in her confident stride and appropriate demeanor. Louis, despite his youth, seemed to understand the solemnity of the moment. His usual playful energy was contained but not entirely suppressed, creating an endearing balance between childlike wonder and ceremonial propriety. Kate kept a gentle hand on his shoulder, providing both guidance and reassurance as they made their way toward the front of the Abbey. The congregation itself was a remarkable assembly of individuals from across British society and beyond. Religious leaders, politicians, representatives from charitable organizations, and distinguished guests from around the world had all come together for this special service. The children had met some of these people at previous events, but the formal setting lent even familiar faces an air of increased significance. The Abbey's choir, positioned in their traditional location, added to the atmosphere with their presence even before they began to sing. These were some of the finest voices in the country, and their participation in today's service would create musical moments that would be remembered long after the ceremony concluded. The children had heard recordings of similar performances, but experiencing it in person within the Abbey's perfect acoustics would be entirely different. As they approached their designated seats, the family could see the elaborate arrangements that had been made for their comfort and the requirements of the ceremony. Every detail had been considered, from the positioning of the chairs to ensure the best view of the proceedings, to the discreet placement of items they might need during the service. The children's seats had been slightly adjusted to accommodate their heights and ensure they could see clearly. The procession had taken them past monuments to some of Britain's greatest figures, silent stone witnesses to the day's events. George, who had been studying history with his tutors, recognized several of the memorials and tombs they passed. This personal connection to the past seemed to deepen his appreciation for the significance of their presence in this sacred space. Kate helped arrange the children once they reached their seats, making small adjustments to Charlotte's dress and ensuring Louis was comfortable. These maternal gestures, performed with discreet efficiency, demonstrated the balance she maintained between her public role and her primary responsibility as a mother. William stood ready to assist, but his wife's practiced handling of such situations required little intervention. The view from their position provided them with an excellent perspective on both the altar area, where the main ceremony would take place, and the wider congregation. The children could see the representatives from various organizations and charities that their family supported, creating personal connections to the broader significance of the occasion. The Abbey's ancient windows cast colored light across the assembly, creating an almost magical atmosphere that seemed to bridge the gap between past and present. The children were visibly moved by the beauty of their surroundings, their earlier nervousness replaced by genuine appreciation for the historic setting and the importance of their participation. Other members of the royal family were also taking their places, creating a sense of continuity and shared purpose. The children exchanged subtle acknowledgments with their relatives, maintaining appropriate formality while still expressing the warmth of family connections. These interactions were carefully observed by the media and guests, but the family had learned to navigate such attention with natural grace. The final moments before the ceremony officially began were marked by a sense of anticipation that seemed to permeate the entire abbey. Everyone present understood they were about to witness something significant, an event that would become part of the historical record and be referenced in future discussions of royal traditions and public service. The abbey fell into expectant silence, a quiet so complete that even the slightest movement seemed amplified. The family sat with perfect posture, their faces reflecting appropriate solemnity mixed with genuine interest in the proceedings about to unfold. This was the moment when all the preparation, all the rehearsals, and all the anticipation would culminate in the actual historic event they had come to witness and participate in. The ceremony began with the haunting sound of the abbey's great organ, its deep tones resonating through every stone and beam of the ancient building. The music seemed to awaken something profound in the atmosphere, transforming the space from a place of waiting into one of active celebration and reverence. The children sat transfixed, their earlier fidgeting completely forgotten as the magnificent sound washed over them. The choir's voices joined the organ in perfect harmony, creating layers of sound that seemed to lift the entire congregation into a higher realm of experience. Charlotte's eyes widened with wonder at the beauty of the music, while George nodded slightly in recognition of pieces he had heard during his musical education. Louis remained remarkably still, apparently mesmerized by the grandeur of the performance. The service proceeded with the precision that comes from centuries of tradition, each element carefully timed and executed. The family followed along in their programs, the children occasionally whispering questions to their parents when they encountered unfamiliar terms or concepts. William and Kate answered quietly, using these moments as teaching opportunities while maintaining appropriate respect for the ongoing ceremony. The principal speakers of the day delivered their addresses with eloquence and passion, their words carrying across the abbey with clarity and power. The children listened attentively, their expressions showing their efforts to understand the more complex ideas being presented. These speeches would later be analyzed and quoted extensively, but in the moment, they served to connect everyone present to the deeper meaning of the occasion. During one particularly moving portion of the service, Kate was seen gently wiping away a tear, her emotional response to the proceedings adding a human element to the formal pageantry. This moment of genuine feeling was captured by photographers and would later be described as one of the most touching aspects of the day. William placed a reassuring hand on her arm, a gesture that spoke of their partnership and mutual support. The children's behavior throughout the lengthy ceremony was exemplary, demonstrating the effectiveness of their preparation and their natural maturity. George maintained perfect posture while clearly engaging with the content of the service. Charlotte adjusted her position occasionally, but never in a way that seemed inappropriate or distracting. Louis, despite his young age, managed to sit quietly, for far longer than most children his age could manage. The abbey's acoustics meant that even the slightest sound carried clearly, from the rustle of pages being turned to the gentle clearing of throats. The family was acutely aware of this, and their movements were measured and considerate. When Louis dropped his program at one point, Charlotte quietly helped him retrieve it, an act of sibling care that went largely unnoticed except by those sitting closest to them. The ceremonial elements of the service provided visual spectacle to complement the musical and oratory components. Processions of clergy in elaborate vestments moved with practiced grace, while the placement of ceremonial objects was conducted with precision and reverence. The children watched these elements with fascination, clearly appreciating the artistry and tradition involved in every aspect of the proceedings. Midway through the ceremony, there was a moment designated for silent reflection, during which the entire abbey fell into complete quiet. The family used this time for personal contemplation, the children having been prepared for this portion and understanding its significance. The silence was so profound that it seemed to have its own presence, connecting everyone present in a shared moment of introspection. The lighting in the abbey shifted subtly as the service progressed, with natural light from the windows combining with artificial illumination to create an atmosphere that enhanced each portion of the ceremony. The family was positioned to take advantage of this lighting design, ensuring that they were clearly visible to both the congregation and the cameras documenting the event. Special musical performances throughout the service showcased some of Britain's finest talent, with pieces specifically chosen for their relevance to the occasion and their ability to move and inspire the audience. The children's musical education allowed them to appreciate the technical skill involved, while their emotional response to the performances was evident in their facial expressions and body language. The ceremonial readings were delivered by distinguished guests, each chosen for their particular connection to the themes of the day. The family listened with obvious attention and respect, occasionally exchanging glances when a particularly meaningful passage was shared. These moments of connection demonstrated their engagement with the deeper purpose of the gathering beyond its ceremonial aspects. As the service moved toward its climactic moments, the atmosphere in the abbey seemed to intensify. The combination of music, spoken word, and visual pageantry created an experience that transcended any single element, becoming something greater than the sum of its parts. The family's presence added to this atmosphere, their dignity and obvious commitment to the occasion enhancing the significance of every moment. As the ceremony reached its crescendo, the atmosphere in Westminster Abbey became electric with anticipation and emotion. The final hymn began, and the entire congregation rose as one, their voices joining together in a powerful demonstration of unity and shared purpose. The family stood with perfect synchronization, their own voices adding to the magnificent chorus that filled every corner of the ancient building. The children participated enthusiastically in this communal singing, their clear young voices blending beautifully with the adult chorus around them. George sang with growing confidence, his musical training evident in his ability to maintain the melody even when surrounded by hundreds of other voices. Charlotte's natural musicality shone through as she navigated the harmonies with surprising skill for someone her age. Even Louis contributed his small voice to the great song, occasionally stumbling over words but making up for any imperfection with genuine enthusiasm. Kate smiled down at him encouragingly, her own strong voice never wavering as she balanced participation in the ceremony with gentle guidance of her youngest child. The sight of the family singing together became one of the most memorable images of the entire event. The organ's final notes seemed to linger in the air long after the music officially ended, as if the abbey itself was reluctant to release the beauty of the sound. The silence that followed was profound and meaningful, filled with the collective emotion of everyone present. The family stood quietly, their faces reflecting the impact of what they had just experienced and participated in. The concluding blessing was delivered with particular solemnity, the words carrying special significance given the historic nature of the occasion. William bowed his head respectfully, while Kate closed her eyes in concentration, clearly moved by the spiritual aspect of the proceedings. The children followed their parents' example, demonstrating their understanding of the sacred elements of the ceremony. As the service officially concluded, there was a moment of transition where the formal ceremony gave way to the more personal interactions that would follow. The family remained in position as other participants began to move, their training and royal protocol evident in their patient waiting and continued dignified bearing. They understood that their role continued beyond the official end of the service. The recessional began with the same musical grandeur that had marked the opening, but now there was an additional sense of completion and fulfillment. The family would be among the last to leave, allowing other guests to exit first while maintaining their prominent position for the photographers and television cameras, still documenting every moment. The children had performed magnificently throughout, the long ceremony exceeding even their parents' expectations for good behavior and appropriate participation. Their stamina and focus had been remarkable, and the pride in William and Kate's expressions was unmistakable. The weeks of preparation had paid off in a flawless public appearance that would be remembered as a highlight of their young lives. As they prepared to begin their own procession out of the abbey, there were brief moments of interaction with other, distinguished guests. These exchanges were necessarily short and formal, but they provided opportunities for the family to acknowledge the participation of others and expressed their appreciation for the shared experience of the ceremony. The Abbey staff, who had worked tirelessly to make the event perfect, received discreet nods of acknowledgement from the family as they passed. These small gestures of recognition, while not widely noticed by the general public, were deeply appreciated by those who had dedicated themselves to ensuring every detail was executed flawlessly. The walk back down the aisle provided a different perspective on the Abbey and the assembled guests. Now, instead of focusing forward toward the altar, the family could appreciate the full scope of the congregation and the magnificent architectural details they had missed during their earlier procession. The children's eyes darted around the space, taking in sights they hadn't noticed before. The ancient tombs and memorials took on new significance as they passed them during their exit. These monuments to Britain's history seemed to approve of the day's proceedings, as if the spirits of past generations were present to witness this continuation of traditions they had helped establish. George appeared particularly struck by this connection to history. The changing quality of light in the Abbey, as afternoon gave way to early evening, added another layer of beauty to their departure. The colored glass windows now cast different patterns on the stone floors, creating a kaleidoscope effect that seemed to celebrate the successful completion of the ceremony. Charlotte pointed out some of these light patterns to her mother, sharing in the wonder of the moment. As they approached the great doors that would lead them back into the outside world, the family could hear the sounds of the crowd that had gathered to welcome them back into the public space. The contrast between the reverent quiet of the Abbey interior and the enthusiastic energy of the waiting public created an anticipation that was almost palpable. The great doors of Westminster Abbey opened once again, and the family stepped from the sacred interior into the bright afternoon light, where they were greeted by an eruption of cheers and applause from the thousands of people who had gathered to witness their emergence. The contrast between the reverent atmosphere inside and the joyful celebration outside created a moment of pure magic that seemed to energize everyone present. The children's faces immediately brightened at the sight and sound of the enthusiastic crowd. All the formal composure they had maintained during the ceremony gave way to genuine smiles and animated responses to the public's warm reception. Louis actually giggled with delight at the volume of the cheering, while Charlotte waved with renewed enthusiasm. George maintained his developing sense of dignity, while still clearly enjoying the positive energy of the crowd. Kate paused to accept flowers from several children who had been waiting at the barriers, bending down to speak briefly with each young well-wisher. These spontaneous interactions, while not part of the official program, had become a cherished tradition that allowed for genuine human connections amid the formal pageantry. The children watched their mother's graceful handling of these moments, learning by example how to balance royal protocol with authentic warmth. William moved through his own series of brief conversations with officials and distinguished guests who had lingered after the ceremony. His military bearing and natural leadership qualities were evident as he navigated these interactions while keeping one eye on his family and the crowd dynamics. The children observed their father's confident management of multiple conversations and responsibilities simultaneously. The photographs being taken during these moments would become iconic images of the day, capturing not just the formal beauty of the royal family but also their genuine enjoyment of the public celebration. The children's authentic reactions to the crowd's enthusiasm created some of the most endearing shots, images that would be treasured by royal watchers and casual observers alike. The Abbey steps provided a perfect stage for the family's final public appearances of the day. The ancient stone architecture created a magnificent backdrop, while the positioning allowed the maximum number of people to see and photograph the family. Every angle had been calculated to ensure the best possible images while maintaining appropriate security and crowd control. As they prepared to depart, there were final acknowledgments to be made and last courtesies to observe. The family thanked the Abbey officials, the security personnel, and the various dignitaries who had made the day possible. These expressions of gratitude, while brief, were genuine and reflected the family's appreciation for the efforts of everyone involved in creating such a memorable event. The children's energy remained high despite the long day, a testament to their excitement about the occasion and their natural resilience. They had handled the formal requirements of the ceremony beautifully, But now they were clearly looking forward to the more relaxed atmosphere of their journey home. Louis bounced slightly on his toes, while Charlotte smoothed her dress one final time before the camera's dot. The final wave to the crowd was a moment of pure connection between the royal family and the public. Thousands of people waved back, creating a sea of movement and color that seemed to stretch in every direction. The children were visibly moved by this display of affection and support, their faces reflecting both happiness and a growing understanding of their unique relationship with the British people. The return journey to the vehicles was conducted at a more leisurely pace than their arrival, allowing for additional interactions and photographs. The family had learned over the years that these informal moments often produce the most meaningful connections with the public, and they made sure to take advantage of every opportunity to engage with the people who had waited so patiently to see them. As they reached their car, there was a final moment of transition from public figures back to private family. The children piled into the vehicle with obvious relief at being able to relax their formal posture, while William and Kate exchanged satisfied looks at the successful completion of another significant royal engagement. The day had exceeded all expectations in terms of both ceremonial significance and public reception. The drive away from Westminster Abbey provided a chance for the family to decompress and reflect on the day's events. The children chattered excitedly about their favorite moments, comparing notes on what they had seen and experienced. Their animated discussion filled the car with laughter and joy, a perfect end to a day that had balanced solemn ceremony with genuine celebration. As London's familiar streets passed by their windows, the family could see people still celebrating and discussing the day's events. Street vendors were selling commemorative items, while groups of tourists and locals alike continued to gather near the Abbey, reluctant to let the special atmosphere of the day fade away. The lasting impact of their appearance was evident in the continued excitement of everyone they passed. The successful conclusion of this historic event would be remembered not just for its ceremonial significance, but for the way the royal family had managed to balance tradition with accessibility, formality with warmth, and public duty with private authenticity. The children had played their parts perfectly while still remaining recognizably themselves, an achievement that would serve them well in all their future public appearances.